Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam, and in this video I'm going to be planting some perennials that are good in part shade or shade conditions in this corner of my backyard. I've put in some of the shrubs and a few screening things over the last few months, and I put those videos up, and now it's time to put in some lower flowering things. I picked a lot of very cold hardy things, so most people that are watching this video, wherever you are, will likely be able to use most of what I'm putting in here. I'm eventually going to put a bench over here. It's a little too shady actually in this space right this minute. I have got to do some tree work. This thundercloud plum has some issues. It needs some serious pruning, and I've got a cherry tree over here that this time of morning should be letting a little more light in than it currently is. The limbs are hanging very, very low on it, so I've got to get those limbed up, and I'll get that done in the next few weeks. But I wanted to go ahead and get some of these perennial plants in the ground. Perennials are obviously things that come back every year. Of course, shrubs and trees are also perennials, but we usually reserve the word perennial to mean things that look suspiciously like they could go either way. That tends to be how what we use that word for in the green business to describe. But obviously, all shrubs and trees also fall into the category of perennials. And a lot of what I actually have here is almost all evergreen, actually. So let's go through those and take a look. So here's this corner. There's a gate over here, and I'm going to put a flagstone path that comes through here, and I'm actually going to put some dwarf Mondo grass in between the stones. I have an upright variegated Mondo grass here that I'll show you in a minute, and a dwarf variegated Mondo only gets maybe inch and a half tall. Bench is going in this area right here, so I've left a little curved in there and a curve in there, and there'll be some other items going in here over time as well. And I'm going to have a little bit of room back there behind the bench to put a few more small shrubs at some point. I'm going to use three of these stained glass Hosta right here. These are one of my favorites because they're just so bright and showy, and in a place that's kind of dark, a dark corner like this, these will be a good addition to that. And they're going to be hardy in zone 3 to 9. Of course, rabbits and deer like Hosta as well. I have this little fenced corner over here where I'm not bothered by any of those issues, but if you have those issues, then Hosta may not be your friend. This plant right here is just one of my new favorites. This is a Heucherella from the Southern Living plant collection called Twilight, and you see the colors. It's got this charcoal color, top of the leaf here, and then the bottom is just this bright purple. And just depending on how the leaves are laying on them at any given time, you can see all that bright purple just stands out on them. Just absolutely beautiful plants. Heucherellas are a combination of Heucheras and Tiarellas, and through breeding, we have all kinds of crazy new introductions on these Heucherellas. But I've had this one at the garden center, I think 3 times already, and they sold out almost immediately. They're hardy in zones 4 to 9. This is a Carex right here. This is another Southern Living plant collection variety. They have a bunch of these. I have, I think, 4 varieties of these that I'm going to be using on projects. It just has beautiful variegated foliage, and it's really nice and showy in a part shade space like this. It may be a little too shady for these right this minute. I think they'd like a little more sun than they're going to get, but when I get the trees limbed up, they'll be fine. These Carex are hardy in zones 5 to 9 and just beautiful year round. I've got some Woodland Phlox here. Woodland Phlox is actually a native to the eastern US, and some people will call this a wild sweet William, and it's actually hardy in zone 3 to 8. But you can see this little blue flower right here. It'll get clusters of these blue flowers for a very long time in the mid-spring to early summer. But they're really, really nice plants. And I've got a blue angel Hosta right there. That's a blue foliaged Hosta that is a hardy in zone 3 to 9. Moving back over here, I've got a Heuchera here called Marvelous Marble, and it's hardy in zone 3 to 9. It's a white flowering variety, but it starts off, it looks pretty green, and it's got a little bit of purple veining in the middle, and that'll be more pronounced over time. And I thought it'd look very good next to these Twilight Heucherellas right here. Very nice plant. And also the Heucherella also blooms with white flowers as well. Moving over here to the other side of what will be the sidewalk. These are some variegated Mondo grass here. That's probably the least hardy thing that I'm putting in here. It's hardy in zones 6 to 9. I had these sitting in too much sun out on the parking lot at the garden center, and they cooked off a little bit, so they're not quite as showy as they normally are. But these will be a nice little evergreen, bright addition when they get that variegation back in their leaves. And this is 3 Helleborus. I've been planting Helleborus all over this yard. It seems like this variety right here is called Peppermint Ruffles, and it is absolutely beautiful. It is a double flower that's pink with a little bit of white in it, and they'll be very nice. These are evergreen. Of course, they bloom in the winter. I think I'll have a extended period of time blooming where some things will be blooming earlier than others. I didn't really go for flowers though. There's not a whole lot of flowering things here. I actually have lots of color on the shrubs that I have in here, and there's a hydrangea there and another pieris there. There's an azalea that's over here, and I'm going to add a couple items here that will bloom later in the summer, so that I always have something showy in here. But I went for more foliage related color. I'm also going to add a couple Astilbe varieties over here, but I didn't have any ready right now. I just had some white ones. I'm going to use some white ones on the other side of the fence in that white garden, but over here I wanted something that was showy or something that's pink or red or that kind of thing. I'll get those in later. All of these perennials would like to have moist, well-drained soil, and I've got the moist thing taken care of back here. This is the low corner of my yard, but the soil underneath my feet is heavy clay and it just doesn't drain very well, so that's an issue. I have a pine bark and compost blend, and you can buy pine bark soil conditioner and then you can buy compost and blend them together, that I'm going to use to plant these in, and I'm going to leave them a little bit elevated. But I'm going to pull this clay out of the hole. I'm going to mix it 50% clay with 50% my mix of compost and pine bark. That's kind of a 50-50 blend. I'm going to blend those two things together, and then I'm going to leave them elevated just a little bit above this clay, and that compost mixed into that should help keep them moist, but elevating them and using that bark should help drain the clay beneath them a little bit and allow them to not rot. I actually had some Astilbe back in this corner at one time, and they lasted a few years, and we just had a particularly wet year, and they faded away. So I know to elevate everything over here, and I know I needed to create some drainage in this clay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'll show you after I get everything planted. So everything is in the ground. Of course, they're small pieces right now, but they'll put on some growth pretty quickly here in the spring, and all of it looks really good. I think it's a lot more showy back here for sure. And once all these things fill in, it'll be really nice back here. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. There's a lot of work to do here. I'm going to be power washing and refinishing this fence. There's like I say, a bench going in there. There's some additional pieces going in that corner. There's a stone path going through here, and I'm actually going to run drip irrigation sometime in the late summer through everything here. I won't have to use it a whole lot back here, but it'll be here if I need it in the future. I won't be dragging the water hose around everywhere like I just did to water all these things in initially. So, and this is just one corner of a big giant project I have going on at my house. So thank you very much for watching this video.